Hello, I'm Carolyn Cox, and welcome to the April 27th meeting of the Thurston Regional Housing Council. Let's do a quick welcome and introductions for all we have here. I like to do this popcorn style, so I'm going to hand it off to Tom Webster.
Oh, all right. So sorry, Chair Cox, we want to do kind of jurisdictional updates? I mean, jurisdictional introductions?
Yeah, I guess probably we should.
See, the district says.
So yeah, so let's go ahead and introduce the county, and then we'll come in with the next jurisdiction.
Okay. Can I ask Vice Chair Caroline Mejia to do the introductions for Thurston County?
Yes, that's me. Sorry. I'm Carolina Mejia, here representing Thurston, and our amazing staff that have joined us today is Tom Webster, Keely Marino, and our county manager, Ramiro Chavez. I think I got everyone. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Right. And who would you like to ping to another jurisdiction?
I guess I'll go with Olympia because Jim is right beside my screen. So
Okay.
Great. Yeah, I just have to say, it looks like everybody has awesome haircuts today. People must have got haircuts since our last meeting. It's a dramatic change in Zoom. I don't know why. Anyway, sorry for that fun note. I'm Jim Cooper from the Olympia City Council, and with me is Councilmember Danny Madrone, Assistant City Manager Keith Staley, and our Home Fund Coordinator and CDBG Coordinator Darian Lightfoot. I think that's everyone from Olympia. And I will go to Michael.
Hi, Michael Altauser, City Council from Tumwater. I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Councilmember Joan Cathy, as well as Brad Madrud from our Planning Department. I'm scrolling through, and also our City Administrator, John Doan. Thanks for having us.
I forgot to get my haircut.
Me too. Well, and back to Lacey here, and I'm Carolyn Cox from the Lacey City Council, and we will have here with us Rick Walk, our Director of Community and Economic Development. I think he was in a quick huddle, and of course the inimitable Kelly Adams, so who makes all things wonderful and possible.
And Mayor Ryder just joined onto the screen too.
Oh, great, great. So welcome, Andy Ryder. I wasn't sure he was going to be able to join us today.
Appreciate it.
There he is. Great. Any other Lacey people I missed? Okay, great. All righty.
And then, sorry, Chair Cox, you also have Councilmember Hess from Yelm.
Oh, is he here now?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Hess, would you like to just say hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. I apologize. I thought I made it on time, but I guess I didn't. And yes, this hopefully will be the last meeting that I'll actually be by myself, and hopefully starting next month. I know hopefully for the retreat, I will have one of our planning people with me. And so I'm going to try to slowly get more people from Yelm to join me on this. And we'll see what happens. So yeah, thank you very much.
We're glad you're here, Brian. Thank you. But a little bit of housekeeping on my end. I've had some recent eye surgery that makes the screen here pretty fuzzy. And so between that and the raise hand function not being very functional for me, I think today, let's do big waves if you want to speak. And Brian, since I don't know if you can do a physical hand raise on your end, just sing out if you need to. And
I will chime in if I have to. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you all for your understanding, and hopefully by the next meeting, I won't be quite so limited, but we'll see. So has everybody had a chance to go over the agenda here? Are there any additions, deletions, changes? Okay, then can I have a motion to approve our agenda, please?
So moved.
So moved. No,
Second.
I'll second Carolina's motion.
Oh, we'll get there. Okay. So it's been moved by Carolina, and I think Michael got to it first on the second. So all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All righty. Next, we have public comment, and Kelly is going to steer our ship on that.
First up, we have Kirsten York, and I'm going to promote Kirsten to panelist.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Would you like me to proceed with my public comment at this time?
Please do.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to address the Regional Housing Council and take the moment I can to give some context. I'm Kirsten York. I use she, her pronouns. I am the CEO of Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston counties. We are a private nonprofit that serves the 3 counties with a variety of programs. You will be reviewing some funding streams in which CAC has received and provided to the community for some years. The 2 funding streams are, one is rapid rehousing. It's from our consolidated homeless grant that provides rapidly rehoused rental assistance and case management to the highest vulnerable clients in our community. Our clients that are homeless are assessed with a tool that creates a score for vulnerability. And then they're assessed on a list of highest vulnerability first. This program serves those clients and provides them case management and rental assistance. So it's a really important, critical program to our community members who are struggling to find housing and maintain their housing. We've provided this service since 2019. We serve about 20 clients a month on this program funding source, and we have a staff who provide that service on a regular basis, check in with clients on a regular basis, and make sure they can maintain their housing. The Housing and Essential Needs Program is the other funding source you'll be renewing and considering today. This is a program that started in the state in 2011. It's a legislatively allocated funding source through Washington State. The eligibility requirements for this program are DSHS allows clients who are medically incapacitated and unable to work with no income. They qualify them for, we call it HEN. And once they're qualified for HEN, they come to our agency and receive case management. They could be literally homeless individuals or homeless at risk of homelessness. But during the time they're medically incapacitated and unable to work, they're eligible for HEN, and we provide them case management services. We pay their rent. We provide them with essential needs, which are items that their food stamps don't pay for. So like cleaning supplies, dishwashing soap, toilet paper, that kind of thing. And then we help case manage them to put them into stable housing and or maintain their stable housing. Some of these clients will go on to long-term disability or Social Security, and some of these clients are able to rehabilitate and go back to work. So we provide about 340 clients monthly services under that program and have a staff team who help support those clients in the community. Our agency is able to leverage funding between the other services we provide and other resources in the community for those clients, and provide wraparound services. And I would be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kirsten. All righty. Kelly, do we have anybody else wanting to make live comment?
Yes, so we have Tambra Donahue,
Okay.
and I will promote Tamra to panelist, and I will return Ms. York to our attendees. Just one moment. So Tambra, if you can hear me, you will need to accept the invitation to become a panelist. So there should be a blue button coming up on your screen.
Hello, I do not have a comment. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of technology problems, but I can hear you all.
Oh, all righty. Well, thank you for that. And then we have all also received some written comment that will be part of the meeting record. And I think all of you probably received that. Is there anybody else, Kelly, or anybody on the line who hasn't let us know that they wanted to comment?
Chair, I will look through the attendees to see if anyone raises their hand, but we have no one else registered at this time.
All righty. Well, we move on to approval of the April 13th minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved by Jim, seconded by Michael to approve the April 13th minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are approved. All righty. Kelly, before we move on to the contracts report, did you find anybody else?
No, Chair, no other volunteers.
All righty, thank you. All righty, so let's move on to the 2021 contracts report and turn it over to Tom.
All right, good evening, everyone. So a little context, then I will share my screen. So you'll recall last year, as part of our annual RFP process, we ordered a series of contracts, or awarded a series of contracts through various funding sources, and those were intended to be 2-year awards. However, because our funding, most of our funding is 1-year funding, what we do is we make a contract, a 1-year contract with 1-year award, with an expectation that, or a hope that we will renew those contracts for a second year. The renewal of those contracts is based on a combination of both satisfactory performance as well as sufficient availability of funding to expend that second year of funding. So what we're bringing to you tonight is a request for your approval to renew a series of contracts under various funding sources. So I'm going to share my screen to kind of walk through what's in your meeting packet. And we're going to do this in groups based on funding sources. So the RHC funding work group did meet earlier last week to review these contracts, and was also bringing a recommendation to the full body to renew these contracts. So here you can see that the list of contracts that are up for renewal. So our first batch is our CHG Consolidated Homeless Grant and HEN Housing and Essential Need contracts. So as you can see, there's 5 contracts we're asking for your approval to renew. Next, we have our 2163 contracts. These are local document recording fees. There's a number of these contracts that you can see here. So we've listed kind of the 2021-22 award amount and then the proposed award amount. And for these, they are the same. So no changes between for CHG and HEN and 2163. So all the award amounts for the second year are the same level of funding. And then for the HSF, the Human Services Fund, remember this is the local sales tax dollars. We have, what is that, 6 contracts we're requesting for your renewal. You'll see for these requests, there is a slight increase because of increased sales tax collections at the local level. You'll recall a couple months ago, we had around an additional $18,000 and the RHC voted to award those funds proportionally across those contracts. So you can see the 21-22 award, the increased proposed amount, and then what that means for a 2022-23 proposed award that we're recommending for tonight. So those are the 3 buckets of funds. What we have done is requested kind of 6-month reports from these agencies. And so the next section of your meeting packet includes the reports from these agencies. This is self-reported information on how they're doing, whether they're on track to spend their money, and any self-reported progress or challenges that they're receiving or that they've experiencing. In red, we've highlighted those that perhaps are not exactly on track with spending or have reported some challenges. The funding work group reviewed these. Most of these challenges, I would say, fall in the category of difficulty around hiring staff. I think, as everyone knows, there are lots of agencies and jurisdictions are having staffing challenges these days. So in reviewing all of those with challenges, the funding work group, after discussion, felt that all of them were getting on track and performance was satisfactory. So even for those perhaps agencies who are not on track, the funding work group is still recommending moving forward with renewing those contracts. So happy to answer any specific questions around those contracts, but the funding work group did review those in more detail. So we have these reports for both the 2163 contracts as well as the Human Services Fund contracts are in there as well somewhere. For the CHG and HEN contracts, because they report through HEN, we have an update on their spend down rates, and all those are on track. We also indicate how many days are remaining in the contract. So even though the reports generally were for 6 months, some of these are actually 33 or 2/3 of the way through their period of performance. So the 2163 contract started September 1st. The CHG, HEN, and HSF contracts started July 1st. So those are a little farther along. So as you're looking at those numbers, just keep that in mind, depending on how much time is remaining in their contract. So with that, before we move to kind of what I'll do is ask for kind of approval for each section, the CHG HEN contract renewals, then we'll move to 2163 and then to HSF. But before we do that, if there's any questions that people have, or if anyone from the funding work group would like to chime in with additional information or context based on that information, happy to have members of that group chime in as well. But welcome any questions or comments that folks have.
Okay, a reminder that I'm not going to be able to see you, so if you have a question, please sing out. Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. I guess my question, Tom, is just from a contracting standpoint, you know, because there's been a little bit of a rough patch with one of these contractors. Is the county, you know, confident in the ability to move this whole list forward, or are there accommodations that need to be made in order to do that?
I will have the county manager answer that question.
My recommendation is for the Regional Housing Council to take 2 different actions on the CHG and HEN. One that includes the Family Support Center, the 2 family support centers that Interfaith works, and take a different action for the Community Action Council.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
I just want to give the space to Commissioner Mejia to exercise her vote on the Community Action Council contracts.
Okay, I understand.
Oh, just to have it separated out.
Separate
actions,
separate
no
actions.
different action.
No
Gotcha.
different actions, separate actions.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't clear to me. All right, any other comments or questions at this point? All right, well, why don't we start with the HSF? Could I have a motion to approve that or not approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Righty, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving this award, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Shall we go on to housing? Well, let's
Try to do the 2163.
do the 2163 first, and then we'll take up the other two. So any questions or comments on 2163? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as recommended.
I move approval of the 2163 as presented.
Okay. Well, I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the 2163 funding plan, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving back to, do you want to take the housing basic needs and the CHG HEN funds all together in one loop, or would you rather consider those two separately?
I think what I heard the county manager request is to do the family support center, the 2 family support center CHG contracts, as well as the Interfaith Works Coordinated Network contract for renewal of those 2, and then the 2 community action councils separately.
All right. All right, so we'll do the contracts to the Family Support Center and others minus the CAC for the CHG. And so can I have a motion to approve, please?
Yeah, I can do both of those, Carolyn, unless there's questions from anyone. Okay, so I move to approve the CHG HEN awards to the Family Support Center and Interfaith Works.
Okay, I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, so now we'll take up the CHG HEN funds to the CAC.
I move approval of the CHG HEN funds to the Community Action Council.
Does this also include the rapid rehousing CAC,
Well,
or is that's another motion?
Oh, no, both is what my motion is.
Yeah, rapid rehousing, yeah. So is that
I'll
a second?
second.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
I abstain.
All righty. All right, what are we missing, Tom? Did we get everybody here?
That's it. Thank you very much. So just to, sorry, Ramiro had his hands up.
Thank you, Regional Housing Council members. I will carry on the recommendations of the Regional Housing Council for the Board of County Commissioners to renew all those contracts. As a matter of being open, the Board of County Commissioners may consider awarding the contracts for the Community Action Council with additional conditions. So I just want to leave it like that at this point.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody, for that. And if there are no other questions or comments, let's move on to the point in time report.
Carolyn, can I just say thank you to everyone on the funding group, because I know that's a bigger lift than the actions we just took.
Well, thank you. Yes, you were absolutely correct. So I know how much work that is, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to help you all out with those evaluations. So thank you to everybody who did. Alrighty, do we have Ariel here to do point in time?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me see if I can share my screen. My name is Ariel Benson, she, her pronouns. I'm with the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. I also have the privilege of being the Thurston County Point in Time Count Coordinator. I am here today to talk to you about the preliminary results of our point in time count, which happened, well, the point of reference was February 24th of this year. So we've had a little bit of time to put this data together. I'm going to go over high level. You have the kind of preliminary 2-page report in your agenda packets. And then I will open up the floor for any questions. But of course, if you have a question while I'm on a particular slide, feel free to interrupt me as well. Alrighty. So just kind of diving in here. Again, the point of reference or the night that we're referring to for the point in time count is the night of February 24th. That said, we did a 7-day count this year because we were utilizing surveys. We were able to kind of deload that work off of that first night through our fantastic outreach community. We did that work and through our different homeless service providers through May 2nd. So we collected a good number of surveys. For the overview here, we were able to count 416 unsheltered individuals, and those are folks that are living in sanctioned and unsanctioned encampments, abandoned buildings, under awnings. These are folks that we're able to do direct surveys with, and then as well as projects that don't meet the minimum qualification for emergency shelter. So that would be like tents, that type of thing. And we were able, 294 individuals were staying in emergency shelter. So that's across our shelter programs, Interfaith Works, Salvation Army, Union Gospel Mission. And we pulled most of that data through our homeless management information system. And so it's pretty robust and we're able to get some good demographics from that. 56 individuals in transitional housing for a total of 766. And I did say it's preliminary, but I'll just call out again that we are in the middle of a deduplication process. Well, we're towards the tail end of it. So just ensuring and going through our list to make sure that everyone on there was indeed only counted one time. And a good number of these folks, we had about 100 individuals that were some level of consent refused. So that means they only gave us partial or incomplete information. Maybe they only gave us their first and not their last name, or only a partial date of birth. And so that makes the deduplication process a little bit more intensive. Let's see, so some key findings that we wanted to call out. This is definitely not everything in the full report. When that comes out, we'll go much more in depth. But just to call out some things that we wanted or that we had noticed. So health conditions continue, and these are self-identified, continue to be extremely prevalent in our homeless population, with mental health coming in at #1. And this is just a frequency, but that actual percentage is above 40% of individuals that identify with a mental health disorder, with chronic health following right on the tails of that, physical disability, substance use, and developmental disability coming in as well. So there's a lot of folks experiencing both chronic homelessness, so they've been homeless for over a year, or have experienced 3 times of homelessness that add up to over a year, as well as a chronic health condition. For where folks slept on the night of the 24th, the majority of folks were sleeping outdoors, so unsheltered, in tents or literally outside, you know, underneath an awning without even a tent. A lot of folks in vehicles, and I'll just put a pin in that. I'm going to call out on a later slide here, but we had a high number of folks that were surveyed that were staying in vehicles as well. Where are folks from? So we get asked this question for where individuals identify as their last permanent address. And a very high percentage, 72%, identified as being from Thurston County. And the numbers here are really a large swath between Olympia and Lacey. Those that were surveyed in Olympia identified as being from Olympia or Lacey, and those from Lacey identified as being from Lacey or Olympia for the vast share of that. And then we have 11% for other areas of Washington, 13% for our neighboring counties. So that's 13% from Pierce, Mason, and Lewis, and then a very small percentage, 4%, which identified from out of state. And very far from out of state folks from the East Coast, California. So that's a very, very small but very wide scale on that.
I have a question
here-
asked on that slide, the previous slide. When you were asking where they were from, where was the surveys being taken? And the only reason I'm asking is I'm not hearing anything about Yelm or any of the South Thurston identifying. I just heard Lacey Olympia. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is separate. So what city folks are staying in is where they were surveyed. And that was captured as a different. This is a separate question asking where folks identifies their last permanent address. So for where folks are staying in, we had 56 that took the survey and identified as being in Yelm. And if you look on the second page, I don't have it on a slide, unfortunately, but if you look on the second page for that 101 other and not collected, there was a large portion of those as well that we were from surveys that we collected at our Yelm at Love Abounds Here service event that we sort of dovetailed on to conduct our point in time count. A good number of folks that we were surveyed at that Yelm event fall into that category. They just didn't identify as being from Yelm or any particular, like as a city. And we sort of have to go with what folks identify as. And so if they didn't give us a good answer, or like, you know, I'm from rural Thurston, that kind of fell into that other not collected category. So this is where folks last permanent, where they identify as having their last permanent address. So that could have been their last permanent home, apartment, before they fell into unsheltered homelessness.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
And I'm sorry if I talk too much about about this. This has been my reality for a little bit. All right, so PIT over the years, just to call out some methodology changes here as well. So this year we conducted a survey. Last year for 2021, you see a slightly higher number, and part of that is it could absolutely be attributable to a slightly higher population, but it was also a different methodology because of COVID. We did not do a survey in 2021. That was an observation only count. So sort of what they call a blitz, or as folks kind of traditional understanding of how a point in time count happens, that happened over the course of 24 hours. We had a large number of volunteers go out and try and count as many folks as possible within that time period. Versus this year where we again decompacted it, still because of COVID. This happened right after the Omicron wave. We kept the surveys as short as possible, but we were able to do it over the course of the week because we had folks' information that we could deduplicate. All right. So some other highlights from our count and successes. Oh my goodness, and I just realized I didn't change a thing on here. I'm so sorry. So for that top bullet point, that should be for homestead vehicles, that should be 86 homestead vehicles were counted. And I wanted to call that out because that number is not included in the 416. Or just the information that I was provided didn't include enough information to duplicate. So we just have the raw count of vehicles that folks were living in, and that includes RV as well as car, sort of any type of assumed live aboard. And those were identified by law enforcement and by parking and law enforcement from the individual jurisdictions. Next, and this is a huge shout out to United Way, they pulled together 800 hygiene kits for us to distribute out into the encampments. And those hygiene kits had really basic needed supplies: soap, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrush, and half of them that went out, 400, had tampons and pads as well. And so that was a really exciting addition that they were able to pull together and donate to support the count. We also got 370 waterproof solar hand crank rechargeable flashlights out into the encampments and about 300 meal-sized burritos. And then, so that wraps up kind of my overview. As far as timing for the final report, again, we're in the middle or towards the tail end of our deduplication process. We're expecting that to wrap up in the next couple of weeks and for Commerce to report their data to HUD. And then it'll just be kind of a waiting game and on their turnaround process to release that and finalize it for us as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, thanks for this presentation. It's really good to see this data. Can you walk me through the homestead vehicle thing? I don't think I totally understood the distinction between a vehicle and a homestead vehicle. Is the significance that if it's a homestead vehicle, it wasn't included in the count, or what's the distinction or the primary purpose of kind of isolating that out?
Yeah, so normally, well, I wouldn't say normally, but the point in time count really is ideally trying to capture every person experiencing houselessness. So that includes all of those folks that are living in RV and vehicles. We were going to undergo a sampling method for this year to not have to go out and individually survey, have the jurisdictions individually go out and survey every single vehicle. And so this is just a raw count of vehicles that were identified by the jurisdictions as having someone living in them, whether they saw them at that time or there's like a minimum qualification as far as like the state of the vehicle, the number of belongings that are visible, how long it has been parked in a particular spot. Sort of there's, kind of layers of information that go on to determine if this is a liverboard or a homestead vehicle that the jurisdictions go through. And then, so I'm highlighting it here because theoretically then our 416, if you assume one person at a minimum for each of those vehicles would be at the, closer to 500. Was that 416 plus 86? So 492. But again, I can't formally include them in that unsheltered count because I'm not able to deduplicate them. We didn't get enough information.
Okay.
But it's very important to call out.
Yeah. Carolyn, can I ask another question?
Please do. Yeah.
So my understanding of the point in time is like one of the purposes of point in time, or one of the values that one of the things it tells us is like, because you use the same methodology year after year historically, that you can then measure a trend, because you're not counting everyone. We're never going to be able to count everyone, so it's not cohesive in that sense, but we're able to measure trends. So I guess like since the methodology changed last year, methodology changed again this year, is like, what does the future look like? Are we going to get back on track with the old methodology so that we can get back to saying like, yeah, this isn't everybody, but we detected a 12% increase, therefore that's like a number we can use? Because like the numbers in Tumwater are particularly low. Like I personally know more people who are experiencing homelessness in Tumwater than were counted. And so I guess I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's the message to the public? Because, the numbers are lower. And so if you just take a very surface level look at it, I think if you ask most constituents, they wouldn't say that we've reduced homelessness by 25%, right? From 2021 to 2022, as much as I wish that were true, that we did that. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what's the message behind this count in terms of like the value for measuring progress? And maybe the answer to that is just that now we have to measure it against future progress. I guess that's sort of the thing I'm kind of struggling with on it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's a lot in that. You kind of hit on some of the core methodological flaws of the point in time count being a literal one night count. Point of reference generally, there's some logic behind HUD's reasoning for that. But as far as our approach to it and kind of getting back to that, this year is closer to how we did it in 2020. We shortened the survey. We really relied and dovetailed on our outreach community. But the big part that was missing was events. And that drives a huge amount of engagement. We saw that with the Yelm event that we were able to dovetail on, but we didn't sponsor or drive any, Thurston County specific point in time events. We didn't have a youth and young adult oriented event, and that, has definitely impacted the count. That said, though, even with the kind of methodological changes, we're not seeing, again, like if you include those homestead vehicles, and we're within a few hundred for our unsheltered, and so we are seeing not a huge fluctuation. When you kind of dig into the nitty gritty of it. But yeah, it definitely, we hope to move back to doing events in the future. And then we're learning a lot as well, right? So that Yelm population, Love Abounds here has done fantastic work in really driving engagement with folks that haven't traditionally engaged because they haven't necessarily considered themselves to fall into the category of unsheltered homelessness. So someone that lives in an RV that isn't plumbed, doesn't have power in rural Thurston would count for the point in time count as unsheltered homeless and qualify for, services. But whether they reach out or know that's the situation that they're in, but that they qualify for, or that we have been able to successfully outreach and count. I see Keely, you just raised your hand. Please jump in.
I remember in 2019 when I began, this was a question that Commissioner Menzer had posed to me because the methodology does change literally every year under the auspices of improvement or suggestions from the field on how to improve it. And I think that's why the balance of state continuum of care tries to make it as at least congruent amongst all of our 34 counties to make sure that if there are changes, then they're being congruent throughout the counties. But I anticipate that we might see more changes to methodology generally in the future rather than more consistent methodology, which is frustrating for exactly the reasons that you suggested. I know King County, the PIT is run by the Regional Homeless Authority, and Mark Dones is the person who is the executive director of that. And they also ran a huge sociological report or process throughout the United States that was largely based on qualitative data. And that is the tack that they took this year in King County, was completely abandoning HUD's survey and taking on a completely different process. So I'm curious to see if they yield better results. But for at least the balance of state, it will remain consistent based on what the recommendations of Department of Commerce for us.
And that's a funding thing, right? Like we get balance of state, therefore we have to participate in the PIT process as they prescribe it.
That's a federal requirement, but the balance of state is who decides what software we can or cannot use, what the survey looks like, what questions we can ask. That sort of thing. Whereas King County, Snohomish, Pierce, they get to come at it in the way that they think is best for their community because they're not within the balance of state. So they have more freedom.
Oh, okay. Got it. I was wondering why they're so special. They're big.
They're so big. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for entertaining all my questions and follow-ups.
Absolutely.
I was just going to kind of jump in as well. And I think it may be obvious, and piggybacking on some of what Ariel said, is I think as we look at the long-term trend and we get 2 or 3 years out from here, there are going to be 2 big asterisks next to 20 and 21 with COVID. That's just the reality. With last year having to do an observation only count, that's a radical departure from the methodology. This year, traditionally the count is conducted that last end of January, which was right during the middle of the Omicron surge that was delayed until February, but it really did impact. We've scaled back tremendously the number of volunteers we use to go out. As Ariel said, we didn't have events, worrying about social distancing. So there really was substantial impacts both last year and this year in the point in time count, purely due to COVID and trying to keep people safe. And hesitancy from people, both volunteers and participants, of spending 15 minutes, having a conversation with someone, filling out a survey. And so that definitely impacts participation from folks. So I think we just have to, in our long-term trends, that there's going to be a big asterisk with these 2 years going forward.
Yep, and we all know that it's not an accurate picture of our homeless population here. It's just a snapshot of what we could get with cooperative.
Well, that Carolyn, I just wanted to add that on really specifically, like before COVID, it's academically accepted that these numbers are at least double almost everywhere in the country, right? Like, so that's the back of the napkin recalculation is times them all by 2.
There you go. Anybody else have a question for Ariel? If not, Ariel, thank you. Nicely done. And
thank you.
Your first one. That's great. Congratulations. All righty. Let's move on to Ensign Road. And is it Keely and Keith going to walk us through that?
I'm just gonna let Keith handle that. Is Keith here? Oh, here you are. Okay.
He's here. Okay. Take it away, Keith.
What's the expectation? What's the question regarding Ensign Road?
Yeah, if I can jump in, maybe this is my fault for putting Keith and Keely on the spots. We talked about this at our executive team, and Keely wasn't there, and I forgot to update you. So I think we wanted to have a conversation about Ensign Road, recognizing the pressure that is on Ensign Road, and trying to be. It is probably too late to be proactive, but maybe we can be less reactive with kind of the Ensign Road. And I think what is a likelihood that there will need to be action, and Keith, correct me if I say anything that's incorrect, likely to need to be action taken at Ensign Road before Franz Anderson is ready to accept vehicles. And so I think there's an interest to make sure that all the jurisdictions are communicating about potential actions at Ensign Road, and then to try to be as thoughtful as possible as a region about what that means for jurisdictions if there is a need to move vehicles from Ensign Road at some point in the future. So I think, Keith, that's what wanted to just have that proactive conversation. So I don't know if you can add or clarify or correct anything I said.
I can add a little bit, and obviously we have council members here that can participate in that as well. But every time that there's a shooting on Ensign Road, the pressure on that situation grows greater. Same thing happened along the Schutz Parkway over the course of the fall, as there was ongoing violence there, including a homicide. Ultimately, the situation there became untenable, and the city moved forward with closing that encampment and moving the individuals out of there. Ensign Road is similarly situated. There is a tremendous amount of pressure from the community to close that facility. We hear about it constantly. The hospital is impacted by actions and activities on Ensign Road. They had to close down their emergency room and reroute emergency vehicles last Friday during a lockdown period because of a shooting there. So that doesn't bode well for the long-term tenancy of individuals living along Ensign Road. Is there an easy solution? Absolutely not. As Tom indicated, we're many months away from being able to operationalize anything on Franz Anderson. We've kicked off the development process there as far as doing the planning and gathering the survey data and putting our team together so that we can understand what facilities can go on that property. But there's still big questions in regards to, how much is that going to cost? And then from an operational perspective, how are we going to support that facility? We're in conversation right now with Catholic Community Services about moving Quinn Street Village, or moving the mitigation site to Quinn Street. And the cost of that move, one, moving the facility is high. And then two, operating the facility is going to certainly cost more than operating what we were doing at the existing mitigation site. So we're certainly looking at, putting more money into that facility, not less. I think we can anticipate operating Franz Anderson to be somewhere in the range of $1 million a year, maybe a little bit more. So, we, the city of Olympia, and everybody on this Zoom call today are going to have to find ways to make that happen. Closing down Ensign Road at this point would simply scatter people to the wind. And that certainly isn't something that we're anxious to do. And anything that we can do to lower the stress levels there will be better. We're trying to eliminate the multiple vehicles, the abandoned vehicles, and the completely inoperative and dangerously stored vehicles from there, so that we can provide some more space. We've got 2 outreach workers from the city that are there every day. We've got OLIMAP that is there every day, trying to manage the individuals and the garbage and debris that accumulates there literally on a daily basis. But Darian and I were just talking yesterday with our finance team, and our ability to continue to support the garbage load is going to be really challenged as we run out of money from the county. The city's ability to pick that responsibility up is going to be really challenged going forward. I frankly don't have those funds in my budget right now to continue that program. So there is a lot of stress there, and sorry about the long-winded answer, but since you asked.
Well, thank you, Keith. One thing to Tom's point about being proactive is, if the day comes where Olympia feels as if you have no choice but to move, clear the vehicles off of Ensign Road, I know I would really appreciate, at least a week's heads up, if not more, depending on, your timeline. Because I think, Lacey certainly is going to be impacted. And I imagine Tumwater will to an extent, and the county will as well. Sure. So, communicating that to your peers so that our cities can be ready and help out, as needed. We're requesting information, but also, I don't think anybody expects Olympia to do this alone.
Thank you.
I have a question to ask in reference to what Mr. Stolle had to say. I was listening, and you brought up something that is a concern that I hear out here in Yelm, as well as from a variety of other people in Thurston County and then throughout the state. The concern is the trash. You were talking about how that just becomes very difficult. And I'm wondering, what can we do in reference to that trash situation? Because I've seen it, please understand, my job, I drive up and down I-5 between Oregon and Washington, a variety of other locations. I see the homeless camps right from the freeway. I see when they all of a sudden disperse and the trash and the garbage that is there. I see down in Oregon, it seems that either they have more funds, or they've got a different way of cleaning up those compared to here in Washington. And so I guess the question I have is, what are we doing as the municipalities to maybe encourage organized gathering of the trash by the people that are in these, whether they're sanctioned or unsanctioned camps? Or is it just that, I'll just use the quote that I hear from a lot of people, they live in their own filth and they have no issues about it? Because I look at that and I go, that's inhumane on our part as a society to even allow them, to even make that acceptable, that they do that. And so I guess my question is, what are we cleaning up after they're leaving? Are we trying to stay on top of it? And what can we do to help it so it doesn't become this disaster zone that even becomes a biohazard zone later on when they actually do clear the camp?
Thanks, Brian. There's obviously a lot there. Ensign Road we do have dumpsters on Ensign Road. They are constantly filled and constantly dumped. And it is extraordinarily expensive to do that on a daily basis. Literally, it's costing tens of thousands of dollars a month just to dump garbage from Ensign Road. So, you know, that's just Ensign Road. The city of Olympia does not clean up debris and garbage within the state's right of way. We don't have the capacity to maintain, to do that along our own rights of way, hardly, let alone taking on the responsibility from the state. We did recently enter into a contract with the state to partner with them for a cleanup along Wheeler Avenue. We have a $200,000 contract that we're in the process of delivering on that will clean up all of the trash and debris that's in the state right-of-way on the south side of I-5 between Boulevard Road and East Side. They also provided some dollars in that contract for relocating individuals from that space. So, you know, that's something that we're literally just kicking off, but that's a fairly limited area. It's not what you see at Lily Road or at Slater Kinney, which are also areas that are heavily impacted by people camping and are areas that we get constant communications and complaints about.
Alrighty.
Keely, and then Danny.
And then Danny, thanks.
Yeah, so the topic that came, the reason why this came forward, and I had a conversation with Tom, and it was not at the Regional Housing Council executive team when they discussed this. So it took me a second to remember why. I think it's just regardless of like kind of like the where things are right now, status quo, it is an opportunity to get ahead of a situation like Deschutes. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what that looks like. But we're looking at a timeline that is going to be longer than we anticipate, because it always is, for development of Franz Anderson. We've got a powder keg of a situation on Ensign Road, which has been a powder keg for a really long time, and tensions are getting higher. The probability of that becoming a situation, well, we don't have any choice now, we have to move everybody, it's pretty high. So the idea is to start outside of just alerting the whole region, our jurisdictional partners, that this is a potential reality coming in the next period of time. What conversations can we have to get ahead of that inevitability, so we're not scrambling with a very frustrated public and providers and all the things and jurisdictional partners when we're reacting to another camp being swept, a large camp. So that the intent was to kind of bring that conversation, to have an actual conversation about it, not just a report out. Report outs are no dogging on report outs, but I'm just wanting to have our attention on it and to continue talking about it, because if we've learned anything, we've learned that camps can get swept at any point once they hit a certain tipping point, and it has a tremendous impact.
Thank you, Keely. Danny?
Yeah, I actually, I kind of wanted to do the same kind of pivot that Keely just did in terms of like the conversation among us as jurisdictions. Carolyn, I appreciate you saying that, that yes, more notice is good. I'm not sure what that's looked like in the past, but I'm really interested in, the part of what other jurisdictions can do to help, because a lot of this does end up falling on Olympia to figure that out. And it's just stretched us so far beyond capacity. And I know that other jurisdictions are also feeling very stretched, but I am really interested in that conversation of what happens when inevitably Ensign Road can't remain the way that it was before, because we will need help from other jurisdictions. And maybe this is a conversation for a bit later, Keith, because I'm just looking at the agenda and the time we have. But I'm also curious, like in the exploration of Franz on Anderson Road, that property there, you know, I know that the idea with that is to create safe parking and be able to move people. And I know it seems simple, you know, up front, and then you start exploring a property and you start exploring what safe parking programs have looked like in other places. And I'm just wondering if, you know, maybe getting an update at some point when there is a more solid idea of what can happen on that location. You know, in this moment, I am hoping to hear from other jurisdictions of what we can do with this untenable situation and how we can support each other.
Just real quick, in regards to Franz Anderson, we are literally just gathering information. The county and the city were out on the property a couple of weeks ago. We did a walkthrough. We're looking at demolishing the 3 existing buildings there. They've already become an attractive nuisance. We're moving forward as quickly as we can on that. We'll likely be taking them down sometime in the middle of May. And we're developing the plans and just starting the conversations. There's a great deal of community interest in what's going to happen there. I've got a number of people who are following that issue very, very closely. So they're going to want to be, you know, part of the conversation as we develop these plans, like we've done with our Quince Street Village move. And it's going to be important for us to identify a service partner in this so that the community can understand that we're not just going to put people over there, but that we're also going to manage the facility and manage its impacts.
All righty.
Carolyn, I just have a quick question that I'd
Please,
like
John.
to ask
Yeah.
the Olympia folks. Who owns the property that Ensign Road there that they're parked by, that they're kind of spreading out and making their patios and so forth onto the grass? Who owns that?
That property is owned by Providence St. Peter, and they are actually actively looking at developing a permanent supportive housing facility on that property. They have been into our site plan review committee. They've been in to talk to Darian and myself. I'm sure they've talked to Tom as well about, you know, funding opportunities, but they're still kind of building their portfolio to make that happen. But long term, they intend to create a supportive housing facility there.
Great. Thanks, Keith. And that's good news.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else have anything they need to ask or say about Ensign Road? Okay.
Can I just?
I guess I'm just wondering like where the conversation goes from here, because a big question was put out as to what is the plan, like when Ensign has to go, how do us as jurisdictions collaborate around that, and does that become an agenda item on the next meeting once we have some time to think about it? Like I'd like the conversation to go somewhere so we don't spin our wheels until it's too late.
Well, my hope, Danny, is that our technical team can communicate in the background on this. I think some of it probably ought not to be planned out in an open meeting. I think our staffs have a lot of work to do in communicating. I think they will bring things to the Regional Housing Council for us to consider at some point. But right now, I think this is government to government staffs working together on this. And if anybody has a different opinion, please say so, but that's my feeling about it. This is delicate stuff. The rumor mill gets crazy, and I just think we have to be sensitive to that.
I can say right now that the city of Olympia is not contemplating clearing Ensign Road, but I think as everybody understands, that could change tomorrow morning, depending on events, over the course of an evening. But at this moment, there is not, at least, that I'm aware of, and I'm relatively aware of what's going on at City Hall in the city of Olympia. That's not a conversation that we're having.
Tom?
Yeah, just thanks for that. On the technical team, I guess what I would kind of ask if elected officials could talk to their staff about what's possible for your jurisdictions. This is, as I think we saw with previous things, this is very political. And so we don't have easy answers at the technical team, and any answers that we come up with will have huge political implications for various jurisdictions. And so I understand not wanting to kind of have those conversations perhaps in a public meeting, but if staff could talk, amongst jurisdictions, kind of do some brainstorming, because staff will need help to see what is politically viable and feasible for anything that moves forward. Because there are not easy solutions, and we want to make sure anything we do put forward is at least going to be a possibility.
Thank you, Tom.
Can I say something, Carol?
Please, please.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that, we've all been at this table in good faith since its inception. And that, at the very beginning, that looked like maybe we can do something together at Carpenter Road. And we've had meetings where the other jurisdictions where we all say, yeah, we're willing to participate in this. We recognize that this is a regional issue and that we have joint responsibility to participate in this, and that that we have a duty here and a role here, and even had conversations of like, yeah, we can participate and contribute this level of funding. Now, those projects didn't work out for whatever reason. There's a host of reasons for why Carpenter Road didn't work out, right? As a place where there could be some kind of parking facility. So far as Franz Anderson goes, I'm super hopeful about that. To my knowledge, hasn't been kind of the regional one that Carpenter, the Carpenter Road one was kind of formed here at this specific table. Franz feels like it maybe necessarily hasn't been. So I think maybe there's a duty for us in jurisdictions that aren't Olympia or the county to direct our staff to work more closely to offer resources as like we want to partner to help make sure that this project gets executed. And I'm willing to take that back to our council to make sure that that's clear to our staff and to our other council members and to our mayor that, this is a big priority. But, in terms of your specific question, Danny, I wish I had the answer for like, what can we commit to right now? I don't know what that is, to be totally frank and candid, other than like, we want to try to help to find the solution. I'm not sure that there directly is an easy one for us to grab off the shelf to just put on the table for everyone right now.
I know we're going to have the retreat as an item down on number 9, but I really think that this demonstrates how important this retreat is going to be. As a staff member that's worked 2 or 3 times now on a solution to parking, we do a really good job as a technical team to work through all of these scenarios to come up with solutions, and they don't ever work out. So I'm hoping that we get to a place where we can, as a community, as a regional entity, make proactive, preventative plans that we can enact so that we're not caught in a situation where everyone's in crisis. And I'm looking forward to the retreat being a place where we can kind of start working that out.
Thank you for that, Kaylee. Good point.
Can I say a couple of things, Carolyn?
Please, Jim.
On Tuesday night, the city of Olympia renewed its declaration of emergency for the, I don't know how many times, every 6 months since 2018. We continue to be the only jurisdiction that's exercised those rights to use a parking lot as a parking lot without a change of use or any frontage improvements. And we need other jurisdictions to raise the bar to that level of emergency. Like, and I get it, Michael, it's hard. And it particularly at the size of Tumwater or Yelm, you might not have facilities and property that are even of the scale that we need for this conversation. So, I put that out with knowing that everyone has a different place and a different thing to bring to this conversation. But if this is an emergency, I need to see some other people acting like it, for goodness sakes. And I'm not going to lose my cool beyond that. But this retreat is imperative that we figure this out. And other folks could have done more with an emergency declaration in the time, and that's hindsight. So I'm committed to moving forward. And I think at a minimum, we need to review our parking policies for parking in the right of way and come up with a consistent standard of enforcement that we're going to communicate to the public and then hold ourselves accountable by. And to me, that's the only way I can see feeling even halfway comfortable with a sweep without somewhere else, or a disbursement of that camp without somewhere else to go. And then, just the last point, to Carolyn's request, we're committed to that. And we know that all of the jurisdictions at the table have had, issues with communication over time. And when that happens, it's hard, and it makes it really, really hard on our staff. And we always are planning more than a week or two for these kinds of things, unless it's a super extreme emergency. And so we're going to continue to hope and be at the table and take whatever we can get, but we're really, really struggling and running out of cash.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for the conversation. I don't mean to press us further than than we want to go, but the conversation has to continue. When it comes to siting, a lot of things end up in Olympia because that's what we've brought to the table is land. And I know that we all have our different constituencies that we answer to, and they're very, very different across the region. And I totally respect that. And so if it's a conversation around how we get resources on the land that we have available or whatever it is, the conversation does need to continue. And I really appreciate Tom bringing up the political challenges. If we just say we ask our staff to deal with this and they bring things forward and it gets rejected over and over and over again, they don't know what to do either. So I appreciate the conversation, and I hope we continue it, and that it's something we can talk about in the retreat.
Well said. All right, are you all ready to move on to technical team working group updates? Okay, let's start with home fund. Who's got that one?
I think so I'll just kind of jump in and go through these at a high level, and Keith and Keely and others jump in. Home fund continues discussions between Olympia and the county. Olympia is working on drafting an interlocal agreement. So I think we provided this update 2 weeks ago. So I don't think there's any kind of new progress from 2 weeks ago. We're still in the drafting of that ILA. I don't know, Keith, from Olympia's point of view, kind of where you're on that, but I think that's where we're at.
I spoke to the city attorney this afternoon, and it is on his things to do list, and he anticipates finishing it this week. So we'll have something back to the county for their review later this week.
Great.
Wonderful.
Next, the hotel acquisition. I think we are kind of next steps. A meeting is being scheduled between Lacey and the county to talk about hotel acquisition. So I think we had a similar update 2 weeks ago. We're still working to get that meeting scheduled. So that should be happening here, I believe, in early-ish May to kind of continue those discussions. I don't know if there's any from Lacey, any update, Rick, on the hotel acquisition, but I know those meetings are getting scheduled to kind of talk about next steps.
I think we're scheduled for the second week of May. So
The property acquisition is Franz Anderson. I think we've had a good update from Keith on the status of that. I don't know if there's anything else on Franz Anderson or other kind of questions around kind of update of that. Jump in the next scattered site. So kind of two things. One is, and this kind of ties into some of that conversation. Currently, our contracts for scattered site are set to expire on June 30th. So our contract with Olympia to provide funding for kind of some of the hygiene and waste disposal, and as well as the contract with OLIMAP. In recent conversations with OLIMAP, it looks like they may be able to stretch out their dollars for a little bit longer. So we may be able to extend OLIMAP's contract maybe for an additional month. So that would take them through kind of July. So we will look at that based on kind of funding availability. But those contracts that you renewed earlier today, that did not include scattered site contracts. Those were one-year contracts. We took money out of the 2163 fund balance to fund those. I think as I reported earlier, 2163 revenue collections are down. And so at this point, you know, after sometime in July or August, the scattered site project will not continue to be funded unless there is new funding sources identified to continue those activities. So, which only puts increased pressure on Ensign Road if the case management is not going to be available.
Very true.
Keely, anything on that you would add?
No, outside of, I think that was a really good point, Tom, that you just made, that the little stability that we have is contingent on there being staff there through case management and hygiene and garbage, solid waste removal for that, as well as Nickerson and Wheeler. Yeah, so I think that's a really good point as we're talking about these powder keg kind of situations.
All right. And then the last bulleted item I'm going to give to you, Keely, is Built for Zero.
Oh yes, so Built for Zero, we had an excellent conversation yesterday with the Department of Commerce, Talia Scott, around, and it was ironically, we were meeting for the Anchor Community Initiative. So the Anchor Community Initiative is a parallel process that is facilitated by Away Home Washington. It's only a statewide initiative that is working in communities to end youth and young adult homelessness, based exactly on the same model as Built for Zero. So we have these two processes going at the same time, the cornerstone of which is developing a by name list. And that by name list is incredibly difficult in our community, just based on the fact that we have a 3 point of entry, coordinated entry system. And then every one of those 3 arms has their own by name list. How do we make it all come together? So we had an interesting conversation with Commerce on that, and like how HMIS can be utilized to facilitate a by name list in an innovative way. I don't have the details on that, and our communities, our HMIS service providers haven't really had that conversation yet. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Plus, we'll be traveling to Chicago. There's a group of 6 of us for Thurston County that will be traveling to Chicago for the learning session. So this is twice a year. There are learning sessions where Built for Zero communities come together to learn from each other and focus on whatever area. Ours is, of course, the by name list, which we absolutely must have to ensure that our data is functioning in the way that we need it to function to get to functional zero. Ariel's been making reports on a monthly basis to Built for Zero on our data, and our data quality is not so great because of all of these issues. So we're working on it, very excited. There's a lot of, for years and years and years, conversations around data. We need better data. And I think we're going to finally get there with both of these processes happening at the same time. So big thanks to Providence St. Peter's for footing the bill for all of us to travel to Chicago. Looking forward to bringing back what we learned.
Thank you, Keely. Let's move on to the rent assistance update.
All right, just a quick update on rent assistance. We continue to work with Live Stories to work through applications. So I had a meeting with them today. Can't remember what my update was 2 weeks ago. So where we're at is we had about 1,000 applications from Community Action Council that have transitioned over to the Live Stories. Of those 1,000 applications, there's a process of kind of taking the documents and uploading them into Live Story system, and it's a fairly time-intensive process. It's kind of entering data from kind of paper documents or scans of paper documents into a database. We have prioritized those with evictions. So they've entered in around 325, 326 of those have been transitioning. We've talked to them about increasing their capacity. So they're actually reaching out to some of our local community-based organizations to see if they have staff capacity to help enter those applications. So we're working with them to get those entered in as quickly as possible. And those people, particularly with evictions, checks as quickly as possible. We will be opening the Live Stories portal to the general public to submit new applications beginning on May 2nd. So that goes live. Those who are in process will continue to receive priority processing. We're in discussions with Live Stories about what's the best way to do that, what's the most efficient, fastest way to do that. We know there continues to be a lot of anxiety and stress that we hear on a daily basis. So we're working with tenants and landlords who are eagerly expecting those payments. So the wheel is churning, but it's never fast enough, but we're making progress. So that's kind of the update I have for this week. But happy to answer questions if folks have.
Anybody have a question for Tom about Live Stories taking over? I just have one. How are you publicizing the opening of the applications to the public May 2nd?
Yeah, so we will be posting our website. We have an email list of over 1,000 names of people who've contacted us who are interested. So we will be sending out a blast email to that. We'll be putting out on the county's social media and posting it to our website. The link to the Live Stories will be posted to the county website.
Okay, thank you. All righty. We're ready to move on to our retreat.
I'll chat. Keely's been a go tonight, so I'll take it over. Retreat next week was day 1. Following week, day 2. We met with the consultants today to go over the agenda. It's looking great. We will have that finalized by Friday, sent out to folks, and we're ready to go. Ready to make some moves. So things are coming together. First day is at the Lacey Community Center. Second day is at City Hall, Olympia City Hall, and our council chambers. Yeah. No other things. Keely?
We do have the task of talking about food and snacks and refreshments. I know that was removed as a budget line item, and we kind of danced around it last time we met with the RHC, but we should probably come up with a plan, because I think, just even this meeting today, when we're having these conversations about proactive versus reactive versus all those things, that we could be in for a really long and wonderful and robust day of conversations. And so knowing that we have some bubbly water and some gummy worms around would be really nice. Rick?
I'll do it, because I've just been working on it. I haven't a complete head count yet, but I'm planning on providing, or the city, we're planning on providing lunch and some snacks for next Friday. I have to clarify the city, because Darian called me and thought I was doing it, but you guys wouldn't like my cooking. So
Oh, Rick said I'm providing food, and I was like, Rick, no, I can't do that.
So we'll probably take that first day and provide some of that, and probably bring in some food for lunches and have some snacks and beverages.
Thank you. So we just gotta work on day 2.
Day 2.
Yeah.
Yes, Tom? Tom's
Can I
taking-
ask, is there a plan or what is the plan? I believe there's a phone for people who are not going to be in person. There's an opportunity to call in to Lacey. Is there any details on that?
I will see if I can get a call-in number to put so that we can put it on the agenda by the time it goes out on Friday. We will have a conference phone there at the in the meeting room at people who would be able to call into.
Okay. And then for the one on the 13th, is it possible to get like a Zoom link on the agenda for the 13th?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can get a Zoom link on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And phone number. But
Gotcha.
yeah, thank you. I'm excited, and I'm so sorry I'm not going to be able to be with you on the one for the 6th, but looking forward to the 13th.
Carolyn,
All right.
I
Yeah.
have a question. When will the final agenda be sent out for the retreat?
Friday. 2 days.
Any other retreat questions?
So Carolyn, did you say you're not gonna be able to make it on the first day?
Correct.
I'm also unable to make it on the first day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we know. Thanks, though.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick is feeling the weight, the mantle of the city of Lacey on his shoulders, but I'm sure he'll represent us quite well.
And he's
Okay.
cooking. It's gonna be a big day for Rick.
Egan will bring your voice in too, and from the interviews at least.
Yes, I hope so.
Yes.
So I was just.
Can I just ask a question about approximately, what is the size of the group for this retreat?
All of us here, pretty much. Megan and Ava, the facilitators, and about 6 HAT members.
Okay. And are they on both days or just one day?
They will be with us the entire time.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Good.
Thanks, Keely.
Mhm. So any takers on day 2 for food? Hot dish, you and me, Darian.
That's right.
Hot dish.
County manager, does the county have any wiggle room?
I have to look.
Friday.
Great. To be determined. Day 2.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be the end of the world if we had to brown bag it. I will be having to brown bag it. So anyway, okay. Anybody else have a question or concern about the retreat?
Just a quick one, Carolyn. Can we get away without the 11th?
The RHC meeting on the 11th?
Yeah.
I would defer to Keely and Tom on that. If there are any, things hanging fire that.
So I'm going to say no, and we talked about this last time, and it can be hopefully a fairly quick, but we're going to have RFP recommendations for you, and so we can't wait to the May 25th. So the funding work group is meeting on the 9th, and then we will need, and we can try to keep that meeting short. That will be the only topic on the agenda. So we'll try to keep that brief, but we will have funding recommendations for new contracts, for new contract awards that we would like your recommendation on the 11th.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I forgot about that, Tom. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. And, by design, the first meeting of the month is, we hope to keep to an hour or less. And if we don't need it, we'll cancel it. Okay. All righty. We ready for good of the order? Who's got one? Brian, I'm going to call on you. Anything from Yelm?
Yes and no. I will share that listening to you guys in reference to the housing crisis and the homeless issue. The reason why I'm asking lots of questions and I'm looking forward to the retreat to really communicate with you guys is because Yelm is starting to develop a little bit more in reference to the homeless issue. And I ran into a learning last week when I went to go help out in reference to a camp, a community member was concerned about a particular camp. I went to go visit it and see what was going on. And next thing I knew, and destroyed the camp. My name got dragged into that I was the destroyer of the camp, and I had to correct everybody saying, no, I left it intact. And so there were some other things that went along with it, but it's kind of a learning curve for me, but I got to see it. And then I also was shown a variety of other ones going around in Yelm. And that's why I have the questions I have. And I'm looking forward to the retreat to really hear from your experiences, Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, because as you clear or move your camps along, at some point, they're going to start working their way into South Thurston County, in particular Yelm and some others. And we need to be prepared on how to properly deal with it and all. So that's why I'm going to be asking lots of questions from you guys during the retreat when we have breaks, if that subject isn't covered. So be prepared.
Brian, I just want to say that I really appreciate your questions, and I've got one for you. Are you going to be at the retreat in person? Because I'm just so curious to know what you look like.
I'm sorry, I have 4 dogs, 2 birds, and a bunch of other stuff going on in the house, and it's my one day off of being a truck driver, so I'm doing a lot of other work. That's why I don't have the camera on, or else you guys would get seasick with it moving around. But I am looking forward to meeting everybody. And yes, I will be there in person. I reached out to my supervisor, asked for the day off. And as I said, knock on wood, I will be bringing an individual from our planning department as well to have start connecting with your planning departments and be able to see what's going on. I'll be honest, I'm trying to make it so we aren't an island anymore. We're part of the county, we're part of the communities, and we're the next one to start growing really big if you guys are following the water issue and things like that.
Excellent. Well, I look
We're
forward
about to have our
meeting you in
faucet turned on.
person.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting everybody as well.
Great. Okay, anything from Olympia? No? Okay, Tumwater? Thurston? Rick, you have anything from Lacey? All right. Well, hearing none, how about we adjourn? Gift of time here.